So the question I pose to you guys is, what would you give up to get Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford? What would you give up to get those guys? So we've heard a lot of people throw around 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. That's the starting point. I've heard some people say for Matthew Stafford, maybe 1 first-round pick, right? The thing about it is with Matthew Stafford, the Lions seem to be trying to do him a solid and send him to a team where he can compete for a championship. So I saw a list out there of his preferences. I assume this is a list that he's made it clear that the number 1 team he had on this list was the 49ers. The second was the Colts. The third was the Jets. Fourth was the Bears. And fifth was the Panthers. So, in my opinion, I wouldn't want to go to the 49ers because it seems like they get banged up every year. There's always an overhaul of injuries of key players, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But this year, defense got injured quite a bit. So that's one of my biggest concerns with them. I ultimately think he's going to probably end up with the Colts because if he was able to go to the Colts, then they can go on ahead and try to make a play at Kenny Golladay or Allen Robinson. I would say Kenny Golladay because he has a rapport with him. Get them a number 1 receiver. I think that T.Y. Hilton his best days are behind him. You got to get a number 1 receiver. I know they probably like Michael Pittman Jr., but I don't know if he's a true number 1 receiver. We'll see how he progresses in his career. You got a decent collection of tight ends, a really good offensive line, and your young running back Jonathan Taylor is establishing himself as one of the best young running backs moving forward. So I think even though they're in the AFC and they'd have to compete against the Chiefs and the Bills and some of these other teams and we have to see where Deshaun goes, I think that's his best option. But I would say, for Matthew Stafford, maybe like a first round pick and maybe like a 3rd round pick, something like that for Matthew Stafford. They probably the asking price probably won't be so too high, especially considering what the free agent market looks to be shaping up to be. As far as Deshaun Watson, I do believe like you probably have to step to the plate to start off with 3 first rounders. So a lot of people talking about the Jets, and then you got people talking about Miami. Now, as a Saints fan, I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and they're like, "Man, what would you give up to get Deshaun? Do you trade Alvin Kamara?" I said, "Man, if I got to trade Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, and a draft pick, I'd do it because guess what? I can pick up Allen Robinson or Kenny Golladay in free agency." If I lose Michael Thomas and I feel confident in being able to replace Kamara, will I be able to get a player at running back that's as special as Kamara? Maybe not, right? But it's easier to replace a dynamic running back than it is to get a generational talent at quarterback. So, that's what I would do if I was the Saints. I don't think that's even a legitimate place that we can even consider because I don't think the Saints have the assets that the Texans are looking for. But let's just deal with some of the teams. Obviously, like I said, the Jets have some ammo, right? They can offer, I think, 2 first rounders, Sam Darnold, maybe a future first rounder, maybe another player. Miami can offer, I think 3 first rounders this year and then a high 2nd round pick. So I wouldn't be surprised if Miami becomes one of the big plays here, but don't count out a team like Atlanta. It seems to be that Atlanta might be ready to move off of Matt Ryan. So what if they offer their 4th overall pick and Matt Ryan, maybe they offer a future first round pick, So I wouldn't count them out the game. Right now, those 3 teams probably look the most likely, but for Deshaun Watson, the answer is whatever you got to do to get him. Now obviously the caveat to this is he's got a no trade clause, so the possibility that he may not want to go to the place that's going to offer the most assets to you. So that's something to keep in mind. But I do want to mention something here, guys. It's funny how since the last episode I talked to you about the reasons why Deshaun Watson was wanted out of Houston. Why there ain't no turning back. He's out of here. And I did hint that there's some racial issues here. It's a human issue, right? And I gave you a lot of points as to why I'm discerning from afar that is the reason why. I've heard so many guys talk about, oh, well, if you're the coach and the GM, you need to have a talk with him and stuff like that. And I've heard people say, man, you get rid of everybody short of the owner. What do you do when the owner is the issue? And no one's going to fire the owner. In my opinion, the only way you can keep Deshaun Watson is if the owner sells that team before they got to trade him. Straight up. I think the only way that you could possibly have a chance to keep Deshaun Watson is if if Cal McNair sells the team to someone else, then possibly you may have a chance to salvage things. Anything short of that, I really don't believe that you can salvage that relationship and try to keep him in the building. So that's my take on that. I don't want to spend too much more time on that, but the one thing I do kind of want to leave with a ranking of some of the quarterbacks that I feel that are at least rumored to be free agents, right? So we know Deshaun is not a free agent. He's got to be traded. But in terms of quarterbacks that can be on the move, I would say he'd be number one. Let's say the Packers are going to trade Aaron Rodgers, right? I would say Aaron Rodgers would be the second most attractive. Matthew Stafford is going to be traded. Then I would put Matthew Stafford after that. And then I would say, assuming Dak Prescott doesn't sign with the Cowboys, and let's say he does and they sign him and trade him, I would put Dak after that. And then, it's kind of a toss-up. It looks like the Rams might want to part ways with Jared Goff. When you look at some of the comments that Les Snead's making, they asked him about Jared Goff being the quarterback. He looked at the calendar and said, well, what is today's date? January, whatever. Oh, well, he's our quarterback right now. That doesn't exactly sound like an endorsement of your franchise quarterback. So at this point, man, I think the Rams has determined that he's not their guy. But the problem with the Rams is because they were moving to Los Angeles, they spent so much money paying all of these high-profile players, and now they are strapped against the cap. They traded away draft picks. They don't have a first round. I don't even think they have a second rounder, and so it's going to be hard for them to make a move on another quarterback. So they're in a tough spot, man. So but it looks like they're ready to move on from him. San Francisco might be ready to move on for Garoppolo, and if they do, I wouldn't be surprised if Garoppolo ends up in New England. That's who Belichick wanted to be his quarterback, after Tom Brady anyway. He actually wanted to trade Tom Brady and start Garoppolo and for him to be the quarterback moving forward a few years before Brady left New England. So that's going to be interesting to see. I think this is a topic we're going to hear all off season while we got the Senior Bowl going on this weekend. You got the Combine's going to come up pretty soon. Then you got the draft's going to be in April. And I think we're going to hear about free agency and these quarterbacks pretty much every day moving forward, man. So, I kind of want to, switch it up a little bit, man, because, hey, man, this is a sports podcast, right? So I kind of want to mix it up a little bit. I haven't addressed anything outside of football and basketball, but I want to switch it up a little bit. So you see I got my Dodgers cap on. I'm a Dodgers fan. And being that I got this cap on, man, I want to talk about the